Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So, I've been playing this game for about 6 days now, and I feel like I'm confident enough in how I know how to play the game that I can give you guys some tips and some tricks on how to get the most out of this game for those of you who may be struggling a little bit. So, I hope you'll join me today as we go over all sorts of interesting topics like how best to do smithing, alchemy, the best ways to get money early on, what skills are best to devote your time to, how to save the game, and how best to go about doing that. Armor, why it's so important, your swordsmithing, appearance is everything, read, damn you, read, and repair everything. Yes, we're going to be going over a lot today, and hopefully I'll have some chapters in the video for you so you can skip around. First off, let's cover swift traveling. So swift traveling is something that you can do from basically anywhere. It is these little shield icons on the map. You see these little blue shield icons, or like, well, wagon wheel. Let's say wagon wheel. The wagon wheels allow you to swift travel between locations. So, for instance, if I wanted to travel from Takov to Troskovitz, you can swift travel between the two by utilizing these. You want to press E on them, and it says, "Do you want to travel to Troskovitz?" And it's going to allow you to swift travel. Now, the swift traveling is very swift. However, there are encounters that may happen along the way, which you may or may not be able to avoid. Like, for instance, you may find bandits on the road, and it'll tell you maybe you have a certain % chance of avoiding them if you want to, or you can obviously stop and attack them. Another thing is that when you are over encumbered, you cannot access the swift travel system, which is unfortunate. Another thing in terms of traveling. So your original horse that you had in the beginning of the game does still exist. Her name is Pebbles, or his name is Pebbles. I can't remember which. Pebbles is actually located in Samine, which is down here. Samine is essentially a town that has a big horse stable. And essentially, when you died, well, not when you died, when you got your butt handed to you, and all of your friends died, they basically just stole your horses and they sold them. Pebbles winds up down here, and with enough speech and enough, it's just clever thinking in the terms of which dialogues you pick, you can convince that owner that Pebbles is yours, and you will have your first horse, which will help you out. Now, do keep in mind, however, that horses are not capable of carrying extremely large amounts of equipment, and you cannot ride horses when you are encumbered. So if you happen to have an extremely large amount of goods, well, then you were kind of screwed there, because your horse can't carry you while you got all that on you. You can take some of it and put it on your horse, and if you are unencumbered, you can ride your horse, which is all right. So those cover the two forms of traveling, which is swift traveling and, of course, your horse traveling. Now, another form of traveling is just simply walking. If you are over encumbered at any given time, basically what's going to happen is you are going to start leveling up your strength, which is really cool. So as you travel while you're over encumbered, which is something that you may actually want to do, carrying big heavy sacks of equipment, because it will actually increase your strength, which is going to give you, well, lots of very, very good perks. And a lot of this is going to come down to the perks that you're going to want, because there's tons of really good perks in this tree. One of them that you're really going to want to get access to if you want to explore and you want to have fun is the perk that is through the scholarship. Now, for scholarship, you basically just have to read pretty much everything in the game. There's books all over the place, and you're going to want to open up every single book and study every single book to get as much scholarly as you can. There's a perk down here. It's called Explorer. This one is the entire map is revealed, showing all settlements, fast travel spots, hunting grounds, caves, and other interesting places. This one is absolutely amazing, and it's going to help you out a ton if you love exploring. So instead of having this cloud around the map, it's going to show you where all of the available places are. It's going to show you all of the locations inside of a town, the bandit camps, all sorts of things, these places of interest, so that you can have fun exploring around and going to every single location. And once you've completely finished this, there's more for you to do, so don't worry. Moving on to the first topic, really, of the game, which is you've just started and you don't really have anything of value. So before you have equipment, and I do have some equipment on right now, but before you have any equipment, before you are able to do pretty much anything, you are a naked beggar with essentially no clothes. You get some like crap that you pick up off a dead body, and there's really not much in the way of equipment or things that you can buy or sell. You're also not very good at fighting either. And a lot of people get upset that early on they can't fight the enemy, but I mean, really think about it. If an enemy has armor, chainmail, helmet, gauntlets, they've got a fine sword, and you're trying to fight this enemy with just cloth and a crappy sword, I mean, what do you expect to happen, really? It's not going to go in your favor. A knight in shining armor is going to kick your booty cheeks across the screen, which is exactly how it should be. So how do you fix this early on in the game? How do you level up without fighting? How do you get your character into a position with a large enough amount of money that you can purchase the items that you need? Well, the answer to that question is really simple. It's flowers. So why flowers? Well, number one, flowers are very easy to find all over the place. You can get things like marigolds, nettles, all sorts of various flowers that you can find all throughout the game. There's also a really nice perk. Actually, there's quite a few really nice perks in the survival tree. So if we go to the survival tree, this is the survival tree that has to do with the flower skills, and there are some very, 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 very good ones here. Like there's Lucky Find, which is when collecting herbs, you have a chance to find an additional herb or a small treasure, which can sometimes be things like rings or amulets or like bone combs or things like that that you can sell for pretty large amounts of money. You can also sell the flowers for pretty large amounts of money too. There's also really sweet perks like Leshy, which makes it so that you recover stamina faster and gives you strength and vitality when you're running around the forest, which is really freaking cool. And even gives you a bonus to your stealth. Dry throat. You can also find all sorts of very cool things in here to help you out, like Leg Day, which is you'll gain strength experience while you're collecting herbs. You can also get the Flower Power ability, which is when you have 30 or more fresh or dried herbs not spoiled in your inventory, your charisma counts as 2 more. And there's even like you can sell herbs and games and hides and trophies for double the price. There's also resistance. Your vitality is permanently increased. And there's tons of very good perks. There's even Leshy 2, which gives you more bonuses for being in the forest. And there's another one which is really good. It's called Wild Man, which is the effects of Leshy and Leshy 2 perks now applied not only in the forest, but in any wilderness, i.e. essentially anywhere outside of human settlements and lands directly adjacent to them. So basically what I'm trying to point out to you here is not only is the flower picking a very effective way to become stronger in the early game, but it is also an extremely effective way to get some very good perks early on, which are going to help you in terms of combat, because it's going to get you bonuses to your strength, bonuses to your agility, bonuses to your vitality, bonuses to your stealth. It's also going to get you some very good equipment because you're going to start finding small treasures. And let's do a little bit of that flower picking right now, and let me show you just how easy it is. And also what flowers you want to focus on specifically. So marigolds are one of the best flowers to pick because there's a very good potion that we can make, and we'll get into potion making in a little bit, but let's go ahead and collect some of the flowers. So you want marigolds. And you can, of course, collect anything. It really doesn't matter for this. So if you see a flower, just go ahead and pick it. You can sell the flowers for a particularly large amount of money in large quantities. And I do suggest that you pick up the additional perks that allow you to pick additional flowers. As you're leveling up and you go through the survival, you will find some skills that give you additional flower picking potential. I know, this game is not about flower picking, but you're going to be picking a lot of flowers. So one of them is, which one is it? It's the one that gives you bonus herbs. I can't remember which one it is, actually. There's so many on here. Wonder, Heartseeker. God, there's so much crazy stuff in this when it comes to the the perks, and I can't even really cover all of the perks because there's just so many perks. I mean, obviously you've got your main level perks, your strength perks, your agility perks, you got your vitality perks, your speech perks, and there's so many good perks in here. Things that will completely change your gameplay through if you have access to them, and you know, just like I can't even explain how many good perks there are. So you're going to have to go through these, and you're going to have to find all the perks that you're going to need. So basically what you're looking for mainly is marigolds, nettles. Nettles is also another really good one. Nettles actually look like a common weed. This is what nettles look like right here. And not exactly too easy to find these, but you're going to need a lot of them because nettles are used in both of the major recipes that you're going to need for the most part when leveling up your character. So make sure you're collecting nettles when you get a chance. You can also dry these at the drying rack. So once you have access to a drying rack, which there's one right in Trosquizits, and I'll show you where it is, you're going to want to utilize those. As you can see, I just found a tin badge of defense because of my little lucky find thing. So as you can see, you can find various goods through the lucky find ability, which you can then sell for others. And the lucky find ability also gives you the ability to find other flowers while you're picking the flower that you actually have. So there's a very good chance you could end up with things like belladonna, which belladonna is another one of the important flowers, which is a little bit more rare. So belladonna is the other one that you're going to need a lot of. And you can either purchase it, which is probably the best thing early on, or you can find it. You're not going to find it just anywhere. Belladonna is a nightshade family plant, which means it generally only blooms in the dark, usually at night. And on top of that, I generally tend to not find it near towns. Nobody's growing it, and it doesn't seem to exist like in the town infrastructure. However, if you go to the nearest vendor, which is right here, you should be able to purchase some, which I highly recommend that you do.
Greetings. Was willst du? I'll have a look at the
And you can get your dried belladonna right here. So you're going to want to pick up some belladonna for whatever the price may be. You probably don't have very much gold, but that's okay. Because if you go hunting for flowers, you can, of course, take the flowers that you find, and you can sell them for gold to offset the price. Now, it does take a large number of flowers because they don't cost much, but that's not really an issue because there's ridiculously large amounts of flowers that you can potentially utilize like in the area. So just pick up as many flowers as you possibly can. Now if you hold X instead of pressing X, if you hold X, or I'm not sure what the sell button is on the consoles, you can do a haggle where you can haggle for the price. My recommendation is just to go for something quite low.
More.
And then for the second one, you pretty much just meet them in the middle.
Satisfied? That's more like it.
And if that doesn't work, you just meet him in the middle again. And as long as you don't do it too aggressively, he usually won't get mad at you. You also gain reputation every single time that you sell and buy items. Now, speaking of selling and buying items, you need to be clean. You need to be well dressed. This entire game is about appearance. Appearance is literally everything in this game. If you're bloody, if you're, like dirty, if you're stinky, if you don't have good clothes on, if you're dressed like a pauper, a lot of these things will negatively affect your speech and your charisma, which will, of course, negatively affect the prices that the vendors offer you. So looking your best, looking as prim and proper as you possibly can, goes a long way toward this. Your speech also matters, obviously, but your charisma matters as well, and the current condition of your overall character. If you spend a bunch of time murdering people and you come into town and you're covered in blood, it's not going to go over well. Now, you don't necessarily have to be super duper ridiculously squeaky clean, which you can do at the bathhouses, by the way. But the bathhouses are not always available to you. So this is one of the bathhouses right here. And you can go there and you can get clean. I haven't really used them as much because I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. You get dirty so much in this game that it is very hard to keep up. Now, you can use these troughs that are all around tons of areas to wash yourself off. And when you wash yourself off in the trough, you won't get as clean as in a bathtub, but you'll get more clean than you were before. It'll help wash off some of the blood and the dirt and help you look a little bit more presentable than you were previously, which is going to help you a ton when it comes to negotiating and getting your best price with stuff. Another thing is that every single book and every single thing that you read contributes to your charisma. So if you have any kind of book, any kind of anything that is any kind of book-related thing, you'll see that it actually adds toward charisma and, your scholarship. Scholarship is what you're going to be using to get things like speech and all sorts of other stuff, which is going to help you out. There's a lot of good things in here, like there's books that actually give you skills towards specific things. In the first town, there is a vendor that sells books. And if you want to get access to some of your skills early or do some studying, you can just simply go buy them from the scribe. This is the scribe right here. And the scribe is also the one that gives you a quest about Brunswicks Armor, which I've actually done already.
Where did Brunswicks Armor? It is said that George the Lion of Vortenberg brought it here. He was the nephew of Lord Chenyek of Vortenberg, who built Trusky. This George spent a lot of time with King Wenceslas. A suspiciously long amount of time, if you know what I mean. And it is said that one day, a lion escaped from the king's menagerie, and George overpowered it with his bare hands and laid it at the king's feet, still alive. As a reward, Wenceslas gave young Vartenberg the name Lion and the armor of his ancestor. Only Sir George didn't live to enjoy it for long. He caught the plague at a tournament abroad and died on his way back to his king, specifically while visiting his uncle here at Trust. Of course, the king wanted his armor back. It looked like Wenceslas would lay siege to Trusky, but fortunately Lord Chenyek was completely destitute by then, so he sold all of Trusky and the armor to the king.
Interesting. So basically what this is it's a quest that you can do through the scribe. He tells you about essentially something that happened in the past. Now if you take a look at the trade, you'll see that there's tons of books in here. And the books are spread up into two categories. The lore books, which are basically just books that you can read for fun. However, reading them does in fact increase your scholarship, which is really nice. And then there's skill books, which increase your actual ability to do specific things. The Art of Demosthenes is the one that gives you speech. I can't really say that. There's also Spearman training, Agility training, Craftsmanship, Alchemy, Houndmaster scholarship. These are definitely worth your time to invest in, not only to get the skill in particular, but also to level your scholarship ability, which works you towards some of the better perks in the later of the game. There's also some very good things that you can get while doing this, and let's go ahead and grab one of these books real quick. And we're going to haggle him, and I'm going to go ahead.
I'm done haggling.
And as you can see, if you haggle him too aggressively, he gets mad at you, and he tells you you're a buttface.
Thank you.
And you lose reputation when you do it, too. So make sure you're doing your haggling right. Now, the books themselves can be studied just by simply going in your inventory, pressing E on them, and he pulls out the book. And it's going to say study in this corner. It actually says it right here, but I'm covering it up. When you study it, you have to study it to its completion at 100%. And then, as you can see, now I've improved my speech ability. So very, very useful indeed to have access to these books. Once you've read the book, once you have completed the studying of the book, of course we are trespassing here. Hold on. Well, we're going to cover that as well. Trespassing in general. Or rather the crime system. So we're going to cover that. So basically, once you finish reading the book, you can actually sell it back to him. It's no longer of any use to you. And that's pretty much it. Now you see there's no more star on the book, so the book is no more use to you. You can get rid of it. Now, this is just one of many ways that you can level up your abilities. There's tons of ways to level up your abilities. Inside of the scholarship, there's also some very interesting things that will increase the EXP that you get from specific things. Like, for instance, there's the ones that give you faster speech. What is it? Trying to remember here. There's so many different ones. Grammar, rhetoric, wonders of beasts, wonders of nature. Yeah, here they are. So you get like 20% faster alchemy and survival, which is a really important one. Actually, I got that one early on. The wonders of beasts, which gives you faster houndmaster and horsemanship leveling up. The wonders of man, which gives you faster craftsmanship and thievery skill leveling up. and so forth and so on. These are basically all EXP bonuses, which are going to help you level up your skills faster, and they're definitely very, very useful. Now, speaking of leveling up one of your skills, and speaking of a skill that you're going to want to get access to, is the Alchemy skill. The Alchemy skill is going to get you your potions, which you're going to use to save the game. Without these save game potions, you can't save the game in any other way except for at beds. As far as I'm aware, there's only like 3 ways to save the game. There is the save and exit function, which as far as I know does not require a potion. This is just simply your exit save. So if you exit the game completely, you can do 1 save when you exit the game, because they want you to be able to do that when you leave. You can't save the game here unless you actually have one of those potions. And then the other way that you can save the game is at beds. So if you get to a lodging and you rent a bed, you can save when you rent a bed. And speaking of the lodgings, there is a chest at the bed that you can utilize that is your own specific chest that transfers across regions. So for instance, if I go and I rent a room in Troskovich and I put all my equipment in that chest in next to the bed, which is my specific chest, and then I go to Trotsky Castle and I sleep in a bed at Trotsky Castle, there will be my chest there, and I will have access to everything that's in that chest. It is a very important chest, but the only problem is that a lot of places don't have lodgings or beds that you can sleep at in those specific towns, which does make it sometimes difficult to get access to your specific lodging chest. Like for instance, you can see that Troskovich does not have any kind of lodging in it. You can look all around and there's no place for you to sleep. There's a carpenter, there's a tavern, but the taverns sometimes have lodgings in them, but they sometimes don't, so it's always worth a check. But I'm pretty sure I already checked this one and there was no lodgings in this particular tavern. It's really on a case-by-case basis, unfortunately. Let's see, where is the... I think it's Betty. Betty is the innkeeper here. Innkeeper Betty.
Greetings, Bandle.
Latching.
How so?
I had a couple cum.
Did anyone get hurt?
Bah. Go and.
Wob, 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 wob.
Greetings to you too.
Can I spend the night
Can
here?
I spend the night?
We're not really equipped for that here.
For one night?
Just the one night's enough. All I need is to spend the night.
I'll let you sleep on the hay for a couple of groschen.
Agreed. Here's some gross.
Very well.
Let you sleep on the hay. So is there a chest, though? That's the question. So I'm pretty sure that there's like a... I can't even remember where the hell that is. Sleep on the hay. I think I remember this. There was like a... Is it in here? I get to sleep with the horses? Do I get to sleep with the horses? I bet you there's no chest, though. Unfortunately, that probably means there's no chest. Big old hay piles. Which hay pile am I sleeping on? That's the question. I don't think I've ever successfully slept in this particular town. There's tons of different towns, and you'll find a whole bunch of them as you're going along. Is this the hay pile in here? That's definitely not it. This is the cookery area. This is the outside area.
Look out!
Where should I lie down?
You can sleep in the barn behind the cart, right next to the wood.
You can sleep in the barn behind the cart right next to the wood.
A large beer for me.
Over here? Is this it? Is this where I sleep? Oh, yeah, it is. So as you can see, there's no chest here. And this is one of the problems that you'll have in many cases, is that there's no chest in that particular zone. This one doesn't have a lodging that you can actually sleep at that has a chest in it, so it's important. Now, speaking of leveling up skills and getting your saves, you need to level up your alchemy skill. The best way to do this is just simply to make potions, and let's turn this over to the alchemy section of the tutorial, which is making your potions. So alchemy is a very simple process. It generally just is using specific ingredients to make a specific potion through a recipe. You don't have any recipes to start out with, except for one, I think. And they pretty much just give you all the rest, or you have to buy them. Now, I recommend getting the Marigold Decoction, which is a really good one for healing your character. You're going to want this one. It's also really easy to make. And you also need the Save Your Schnapps recipe. Now, I do believe that one of the NPCs gives you this recipe for free, which is just fine, because you're definitely going to need this recipe, and you're going to want to memorize it. Now, if you follow the ingredients, or follow the recipe, it's actually a really simple recipe. However, I'm going to give you the cheater's method, which is going to make this recipe even faster. Now, there are a lot of various ways that you can potentially make recipes, given your skill level. And I'm going to bring up my alchemy panel real quick, and I'm going to show you some alchemy skills that you're definitely going to want to get access to as you're leveling up. So first off, there is some pretty good ones called Potion Specialist, which is, or not Potion Specialist, Potion Seller, which makes it so you can sell potions for 30% more than how much they're worth. You can make potions really easily early on, and quite honestly, this is an absolutely amazing one. There's also a Secret of Equilibrium, which is the brewing process will be more tolerant to minor errors, making it easier to achieve better quality potions. You don't have to take this one, but this one is useful because it's going to make it so that you can make more mistakes. There's also another one that you could potentially take called the Secret of Matter. Yeah, Secret of Matter. Secret of Matter is really good. Each time you successfully brew a potion, you get 2 or more of the same quality. And if you also have the first level of this perk, you also get 3 extra potions. There's Secret Matter 1 and Secret Matter 2, which is going to allow you to brew extra potions, which is really nice. So let's go over the alchemy itself, and I'll explain to you how this stuff works. So basically, everything is centered around the pot. And the recipe will tell you what the base is for the specific recipe that you're trying to achieve. In this particular case, let's do the marigold recipe, which is marigolds and nettles. And we're going to create the marigold decoction, which is our healing potion. Now, the marigold decoction has water as a base, so you're going to make sure you pour water into the base. You have to heat up the water to boil it for pretty much the majority of all recipes. So just go ahead and lower it down, which you can do by pressing E on it, or you can press the specific button to lower down the pot. Now, when the pot is down, the water is going to start boiling, and that's pretty much all you have to worry about is the water boiling? Well, yes. Now, the recipe calls for us to put nettles in and to boil it for 2 turns of the sand glass, which is the easiest way to do it if you don't know what you're doing. I, however, have developed another method, which is basically where I time it by doing other tasks, and this actually works better and faster than the previous version. So we're going to go ahead and put the nettles in, and it needs to boil for 2 turns. We're going to take the marigolds, and we're going to put them into the mortar. Now, you can put more than one thing in the mortar, so make sure that you're grabbing at the ingredients. In this particular case, I need 2 helpings of marigolds, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to crush them up. Now, by the time I finish crushing up 2 marigolds worth of marigold powder, it has been 2 turns. And I'm just going to go ahead and pour those in, and we're going to raise the cauldron up because the marigolds are not called for to boil. And you can basically finish a recipe one of a couple different ways. You can pour and grind, you can distill, or you can just simply pour it directly into the phial. In this particular case with the marigold decoction, it's just pouring directly into the phial. There's nothing special about it. If you did the recipe correctly, you're going to get a stronger version of the recipe. And in this particular case, you'll notice that mine says Henry's marigold decoction, which is a very special version of this. And this is a perk that you can get, which you're definitely going to want to grab. As you can see, he also makes comments if you make any mistakes. In this particular case, the nettles were on the fire for just a wee bit too long. So going to the perks here, there's one alchemy perk which is really nice. It's called Secret of Secrets. And if you follow the recipe precisely and your brewing time is perfect, you can brew potions of exceptional quality, which the ordinary herbalist can only dream of. And that's what we basically did here. So if you take a look at my potions, you'll see that my potions say Henry's Savior Schnapps and Henry's Marigold Decoction. So there's essentially 3 different tiers of potions. There's like a weak potion. Well, actually, technically 4, I guess, if you count the failed potions. The failed potions are just terrible. They don't do anything. So you got failed potions, weak potions, strong potions, and then finally, if you take that perk and you brew the potions properly, you get the strongest potions, which is Henry's potions, because that's his name. Now, the second one that you're going to want to craft a lot of is the save potion. The save potion is your Savior Schnapps, and your Savior Schnapps is using the Belladonna. Now, the Belladonna has to be boiled for 2 turns as well. So if you read the recipe, it says you will need wine, handful of nettles, 2 handful of belladonna, and then you need to add the nettles to the cauldron, boil for 2 turns, grind the belladonna, add the belladonna to the cauldron, and boil for 1 turn, and then finally pour. So we can do this relatively easily. Let's go ahead and do the recipe. Now, if we do it, we're going to do this the traditional way instead of my cheater way. So we're going to add the wine to the pot. Let's go ahead and get our materials up on the board. So we need our dried belladonna and our nettles. And then we are, of course, going to add the nettle to the wine, and we're going to lower the cauldron. Now, to do this the normal way, what you're doing is you're going to turn the hourglass 2 turns. So we're going to do 1, wait for the hourglass to completely deplete, and then we're going to do 2, and we wait for the hourglass to complete. Once the hourglass has completed, you're going to go ahead and you're going to lift it. Then you're going to take your 2 belladonna, and you're going to put that in the mortar and pestle. Grind it up. Try not to breathe in the poisonous belladonna fumes. You'll die. Pour that into the cauldron. And then this needs to boil for 1 turn too. So we're going to drop the cauldron again. Flip the hourglass. And we're going to wait for 1 turn. And that's pretty much it. And now we can use our file to pour ourselves our save potions. Now, the save potions are so easy to make that you're going to want to make a ton of these because you're going to want to save the game often. Saving the game often is going to help you out a ton. The materials that you need to make these potions are relatively easy to come by, and you can also dry the nettles by putting them inside of here. You can dry all your materials. And once the herbs are dry, you no longer need to worry about them spoiling, basically. So now you have dried ones, which you can take with you anywhere. I definitely recommend using the drying rack to preserve some of your foodstuffs because it makes a huge difference in how everything works. Now, another crafting system that you're definitely going to want to learn is the blacksmithing. Now, blacksmithing, the first blacksmith that you come to is actually part of your quest line at Takov. Takov is right here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to swift travel to Takov, and I'm going to show you the crafting system for blacksmithing. Now, there's a couple reasons why you're going to want to get into the blacksmithing system. First off is the quality of items changes the value of the item dramatically. You see this work axe right here that's a 3-star quality work axe and is a 13.1 value. If I take this work axe and I repair it by sharpening it at the nearby sharpening wheel,
That's more like it.
the axe will increase in value when you go to sell it for 14.8. Now, this is a relatively cheap item, but the more expensive items have a lot bigger effect when you're trying to sell something that is worth money. So repairing items is going to be a big deal. There's a lot of kits throughout the game, like there are cobbler kits and armor kits and all sorts of things that you can utilize to repair items to increase their value as well as to upkeep the equipment. You don't want anything to break, honestly, because when it starts to break, it loses quality, and it's going to become worse. In the case of like this Brunswick gauntlets or Blood Brunswick plate armor, you can see it's 1,973, and then we go to them and take a look, and now it's 2,367.6. So as you can see, there's a really big difference in price just by simply keeping things repaired. On top of this, you're also going to be leveling up your craftsmanship ability as you do this. So leveling up your craftsmanship ability is going to get you things like Razor Sharp, which increases the damage of your weapons, your 7 Leagues Boots, which gives you more sprinting capability, having a lower durability loss, all sorts of very interesting abilities that are going to help you out tremendously as you are playing through the game. There's even one that allows you to re-kajigger items to make them seem less stolen faster, which is if you want to be a thief. And there's just tons and tons of various things in here that you can utilize. Now, on top of this, the thing about crafting is that, well, eventually you're going to get access to a very specific perk called Martin's Secret. And Martin's Secret is essentially the one that is going to give you the ability to craft the highest quality piece of equipment in the game. So there are 3 tiers to equipment. There's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then there's Martin's Secret, which is the 4th tier. And if you have access to this perk, you can craft specifically the Martin's tier perk. And all of the items that are Martin's tier are way better than any of the crap that you can buy from the shops in terms of weapons. So for the most part, when you're crafting things, like for instance, if you're crafting a hunting sword or something of that nature, you're going to want to get Martin's Secret because that allows you to bring that to a level that you were basically incapable of before. Let me go ahead and do a smithing project with you guys, and we'll talk about
What would you like?
how it works and how to get the best out of it. So
What do you have?
let's just go ahead and grab some materials. We just need like a couple iron, couple scrap metal, couple steel. Let's get some fastenings just in case we need those. And let's just go ahead and buy those.
Pleasure doing business. Take care.
All right, so we're going to start out with a hunting sword, which is really easy. The hunting sword is cheap. Now, when you're crafting for money, I recommend making the most expensive item that you can, because then you can sell it, repair it. You can repair it, get it in the best quality, do all the things that you need to do to make it very good. But for right now, I'm just going to show you the general mechanics of how blacksmithing works. So you know the easiest way to get the highest level crafts possible. So the first step of blacksmithing is to heat up the steel. You want to heat up the steel as hot as you can get it, but not too hot, because if you heat it up too hot, you'll burn it. And for the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you what it looks like to heat up the steel too hot. So you can at any time inspect the workpiece and look at it to see how hot it is. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to heat this up to its hottest that you want it to be. So this is as hot as you want it to be right here. Let me go ahead and put that back in the forge. And let's go ahead and put one more pump on that. So that's about as hot as you want it at the tip, and notice that the middle is not the same color. So the goal with the swords is you want to heat them up all evenly to around the same temperature, so we're going to do the same thing to all the parts of it. Alright, so now we have a good even heat across the entire blade. If you heat it up too hot, it will start to burn, so keep that in mind before you go further. Now, the blacksmithing system is actually really fun. What you're looking for is you're looking for a rhythm. I had bugs like this. So you want to have a rhythm in your strikes, and you also want to have a It doesn't really matter if you hit it hard or if you hit it soft. I haven't really noticed much of a difference. You really just want a rhythm, and you want to make sure that your strikes are not landing in the same spot. So you want to very slowly move the piece with you as you're striking. So you're going to want to strike and move slightly. Strike and move slightly. Strike and move slightly. And you want to keep doing this over and over and over again until the piece is getting close to finished. Now, you hear Henry whistling. So Henry is whistling to let you know that you're on the right rhythm and you're basically maintaining a good rhythm as far as the workpiece is concerned. So in other words, if you're trying to get the best piece that you possibly can, you want to make sure you're maintaining the rhythm. You don't want to hit the weapon when it's cold either. So if you notice that it starts to cool off, you're going to want to heat it back up a little bit. And then start working on it again. This is very important because if you hit it while it's cold, you'll start to damage it. Now, Henry will give you feedback if you're doing something wrong. He'll usually tell you that something's not quite right and give you an idea of what you did wrong, like you're burning it. He'll say, "Oh, I'm burning it," or he said, "Oh, I'm hitting it, it's too cold," or something like that. And he'll try and give you an idea. Let's go ahead and start banging on this thing, and I'm going to give you an idea of the correct rhythm and how to get this done. So it's essentially a tempo. You want to keep a tempo, and you want to hit as close to the previous strike as you can without hitting the same spot. So we're going to go bum, bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, 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 ba, bum. And you see, Henry is whistling. Whistling is good. This means that you're holding the correct tempo. If you see the sparks and you hear the sound, that means you're doing it correctly. The sparks and the ringing of the hammer are giving you an idea that you're right. And as you can see, he also lets you know when you're halfway there. You want to flip it usually at this point. And unfortunately, my workpiece has gone cold because I'm too busy talking and not smithing. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and heat this back up to its full temperature, and I'm going to go ahead and finish this one to show you how this works. Alright, so let's throw this on here, and I'm going to go ahead and finish it. Now, when you are smithing, you do have to hit both sides, so you're going to need to flip it, and you're going to have to hit both sides. I usually wait until he says that you're about halfway done, because once you're about halfway done, well, that's a good time to flip.
Finally.
All right, then once you're finished, it's pretty much just quench. So he's going to heat it up and he's going to quench it, and then you're going to have a weapon. After you finish this particular step of crafting the item, you always want to make sure that you sharpen it before you sell it, because sharpening it makes a huge difference in the price. If you don't sharpen it before you sell it, then you're going to end up with hardly anything. It's a free thing that you can do that's literally right next to the blacksmith, so make sure you take advantage of it. For not only for the things that you're selling, but also your equipment as well. Make sure you're sharpening it for your equipment. Now, the sharpening process is super easy. It's pretty much just go over here to the shop, and you want to basically look for the sparks. So the more sparks you get, the better. If you're getting smoke, like for instance, if I go too high, you'll see smoke. Smoke is bad. Smoke damages the blade, so you want to make sure you're not damaging the blade. And just move it back and forth and just get the sparks. It's super duper easy to do. And once you've got your blade all nice and sharpened, it is ready to go. So now we have a blade that's worth 49.3 groschen. So you can sell it. Now, most of the time, the vendors won't give you the full price of the product. So, for instance, if we go to Radovan and we sell this, he's not going to give us 40 whatever. He's only going to give us 14.4. This has a lot to do with your charisma, your speech, as well as his reputation towards you. So all of these are going to come into play for this. As you can see, I have 100 reputation with Radovan. So he is going to give me better prices than other vendors. However, my speech is only 11 and my charisma is only 16. So not quite as good. This is basically the best I'm going to be able to get. I can also, of course,
Let's
haggle
talk
with
about
him to
Moray.
try and squeeze a little bit more out of him.
What would you say to...
We're getting close.
Aye.
Thank you.
But for the most
Thank
part,
you.
you're not going to be able to get full price for most of the products, especially if the person doesn't like you. If they don't like you, by the way, they'll give you basically nothing. So make sure you watch out for this. If for vendors, like if you come to a vendor and the reputation on that vendor is extremely low, they will pretty much give you garbage for prices with that particular vendor. This particular place, I do have a place to stay. This is my chest where all of my items are stored. So if you eventually will get access to this chest, this is your chest that goes across all the zones that I was telling you about. This one's going to help you out a ton when it comes to putting all of your items in here. You can obviously store items as well as take them out. So if I want to take, like for instance, that work axe and throw it into the chest, I can of course do that. I do recommend using this chest as much as possible because it's going to help you out tremendously for storing large amounts of equipment, spices, crafting materials, the works. It's going to be absolutely great. We've covered smithing, we've covered alchemy, we've covered flower picking, survival, how to save. We haven't covered, we've covered appearance is everything, read, damn you, read, and also repair everything. So one of the things that we haven't covered yet is your armor. So in the beginning of the game, you don't really have good armor. Your armor sucks, and well, I mean, that's just the way that it is. There's really not much you can do about it early on because there's not a lot of good armor to be had, and you kind of are a weak little pathetic punk. There is a quest that you can participate in called the Brunswick quest, which is part of the pre-order DLC, if you guys got access to that. It's the Lion's Crest. It's actually a pretty easy quest that involves just following some riddles, and you can generally have it within a day of just running around and grabbing all of your equipment. There's definitely some good equipment in here that can be utilized for your character. One of the main bonuses of the Brunswick set is that it has very high charisma, which also is going to help you as you travel around because people are going to see you as more knightly, they're going to see you as more noble, they're going to give you better prices and treat you not like crap. In fact, that's pretty much how this whole game goes, is that if you aren't like dressed as a noble, they treat you as exactly what you look like, a turd. They treat you like a turd. So if you want to do the Lion's Crest DLC, that's definitely one way that you can get plate armor early on. There was also the DLC, which, the Twitch drops, which the Twitch drops are also something that you can potentially get access to, and those are pretty good as well. It's a pretty good armor set that'll take you through most of the game. Now, what is the armor set? Well, the armor set is comprised of many different pieces. There is your leg pieces. There is your padding, so your padding goes underneath of your leg pieces. There's also your body gambeson tunic, which is essentially the padding underneath of that. And let's go over all the pieces, and I'll kind of like display them for you here. So let's go ahead and unequip everything. And let's make poor Henry naked. You also want to pick up like some rings and amulets because they give charisma. They're definitely good for charisma. So the first things first is you got to put on the padding. So the padded chausses and also your gambeson are your two main forms of padding. There's also a padding for your head too, which is considered to be the coif. So you have padding there. This is essentially your under armor underneath of all your other pieces of equipment. And this is going to get you the ability to equip your other pieces of equipment. Once you've got your under armor on, which I believe your shoes also count as under armor technically, you want to put on your actual armor pieces. So things like your gauntlets, your arm protection, which also for some reason is called gauntlets. They're both called gauntlets. I don't know why. It's a little confusing. And then on top of that, you're also going to put on your leg plates. You're going to throw on your chainmail. Now, your chainmail goes underneath of your plate, but over top of your gambeson. This is going to give you, obviously, protection against slashing damage. And every single sort of armor gives you protection against specific things. So, gambesons tend to give you very good protection against blunt and slashing, but not piercing. Chainmail give you very good protection against blunt and slashing, or slashing and blunt but not stabbing, and so forth and so on, right? And then you put your curios over top of your chainmail because that's your stab protection. And you're going to want to put on your pouch, which is going to give you access to quick using potions. To use the potions that you assign to your pouch, you simply hold down the button associated with that particular slot. So consumable slot number 1 is button number 5, which is going to allow you to drink one of the potions. You have to hold down the button until it finishes, and then it will drink that potion. You also have to have a belt if you want to have multiple pieces of equipment on. So make sure you are putting on a belt. The belt will give you access to multiple equipment slots and allow you to swap back and forth between different weapons. And then we have access to the top pieces, which you're going to want to put your mail collar on, which is your neck protection essentially. And then you're also going to want to throw on your helmets, which is your main helmet that's going to protect your noggin. And then you also have a hood. The hood seems to be there for charisma reasons. So getting yourself a really nice hood with high charisma is very useful because it's going to be your main method of just like looking fancy. In fact, there's a lot of items on here that have no other purpose other than just to look fancy. Your hood is one of them. Your rings, your amulet also make you look fancy. And that's yeah. Up here we have the body coat, which is your waffen, your surcoat. So knights would often wear a coat of arms or something over top of all of their equipment to indicate what faction they were with. As you can see up here, this is the Waffenfrock. The Waffenfrock is a loose outer garment, usually linen, worn over the armor. As far as I'm aware, you don't necessarily have to wear a Waffenfrock or a riding surcoat or any of that stuff if you don't want to. But it does add additional charisma and a very small amount of defenses. It's really just there to add like a coat of arms or a little panache to your character. Down here is your spurs, which you're going to be utilizing with your horse. I don't have any spurs on this particular character, so it is what it is. Overall, the armor is extremely important to prevent you from dying. I cannot exemplify this enough. Early in the game, you'll fight, bad guys, and a lot of the times you'll fight bad guys, and it'll take you a very long time to fight them. And you're going to die really easily, and you're going to get frustrated. And a lot of it just simply has to do with the fact that you don't have any equipment on. And that's really all there is. If you don't have any equipment and you're trying to fight people, you're going to have a really bad time. If you do have equipment and you try and fight people, you're going to have a much better time. So I would recommend that you get yourself better equipment. Better swords, better armor, better everything. The better your equipment and the better your swords and whatnot that you have, you're going to have a much easier time in combat with the enemy. Now, I don't have an enemy near me right this second, but we can, of course, bring a guard into the mix. And we can fight some guards for the moment. And I would not recommend doing this because obviously guards are, well, they're just nasty. And also crimes in this game are heavily punishable. And we'll talk about that in a second. But let's go over the sword fighting and then we'll cover crimes. Crimes need to be covered on exactly how your thing works there. So let's go to Troskovich. There's plenty of guards in Troskovich. And let's pick a fight with one of the guards. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice right away when you're fighting anything is that they are very, very likely to group up on you and attack you in large numbers. So it's not going to be you fighting one, enemy. You're very often going to be fighting multiple enemies when it comes to this combat system, and you have to get used to it. Now, in general, you're going to want to block any attacks that are coming in, obviously, because you don't want them to hit you. There are multiple different directions that your sword can come from, and the multiple different directions that your sword can come from are going to give you various effects in terms of how you're attacking the target. Now, in this particular case, when you are attacking a bad guy, or in this case, a good guy, you can attack low, which is going to be a piercing attack. You can attack high, which is going to be a overhead strike. You can attack with a various left or right and even combos, which are going to make your attacks stronger. So how you attack the target is a big thing. However, if you're fighting multiple opponents, you have to learn how to get away from, the multiple opponents. I recommend finding a good place to hole up so you can attack one at a time, which is the best way to handle things. Now, when you run out of stamina, you need to back up and recover your stamina. Otherwise, it will turn badly for you.
Come on, then. Now you'll see
Now, in this particular case, you see that I have 2 guards fighting me at the same time. Now, in this particular case, you want to make sure that you keep one of your guards off of your side as much as possible. And this, unfortunately, becomes a game of, well, just simply moving out of his range. He will constantly try to get on your left-hand side, and you constantly have to move away from him, which is going to make the fight more difficult in general. I like the stabbing because the stabbing gives a really effective ability. And as you can see, I was able to stay away from the other opponents. Now, this guy has a breastplate on, which is going to make it much harder for me to do stab damage to him, as it protects tremendously from stabbing attacks. So no matter how much I try to protect myself or try to stab him, it's going to be much harder to get that to happen. There is a block system within the game, and as you can clearly see, when you see the green shield on the screen, you're going to want to right-click or use your blocking, or parrying, essentially. And when you see the blue attack, you can attack back. Now, I highly recommend that you don't use the riposte system. One thing that I've noticed about this particular game is that the riposte system is heavily in the favor of the AI. The AI knows how to utilize the riposte system way better than you, and I'll give you an example of this.
I'll chop you up on the spot.
So let's do a full riposte. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we're out of stamina. Notice that the NPC was able to block every single one of my ripostes, and it is like that most of the time. Even if you properly guide your attacks to specific weak points, it's not easy. Now, there are some really nice perks that you could potentially get access to, which I highly recommend. If you go into your combat skills and your swords, there is one specifically which allows you to dish out damage to a target more easily. Like, for instance, where is the one that I'm looking for? If you successfully wound an opponent by strike to an uncovered zone, i.e. a zone your opponent isn't blocking, it will be more difficult for the opponent to block your subsequent attacks from that zone. So basically what this one does, and I highly recommend taking this one, is that if you land a successful strike on a target at any point, then you can basically have a much easier time striking that point again later because he's wounded there. In this particular case, because I've hit him multiple times in a specific part of his zone, I can more easily hit him in that zone repeatedly. That
I'll hack you up like you deserve.
In the chest, because I've hit him in the chest multiple times before. You can see now I'm having an easier time hitting him in the chest, just simply because I've hit him so many times in that particular place. Now, weapon durability is also a consideration that you have to take into account. I lost focus there in the middle of the fight. That was nice. And I'm out of stamina. We have second person on our right here. All right. Now, the second thing that I want to show you is polearms. So my boy here is using a polearm. Polearms have really low durability, and one of the main issues with them is that they just break really, really fast. So we're going to play a game with this guy, and we're going to break his polearm. And we're going to do this by just simply blocking his attacks. Every time he attacks with his polearm, it's going to remove durability from this particular weapon. Oh, well, now we're in a pinch here. So right now we've got multiple people attacking us from multiple avenues. So in this particular case, the best way to deal with this is to get yourself into a choke point. You want to get yourself into a choke point like this that prevents them from being able to hit you all at the same time. Choke points are really, really useful in this particular game. They also allow you to not only reduce the enemy force by a rather large degree, but in a lot of cases make it much easier to use stabbing effects, especially when you're dealing with multiple opponents using large weapons. As you can see, they're having trouble hitting me just simply because the doorway is so narrow, whereas stabbing bonuses, or rather stabbing effects, are going to be a hell of a lot better. So in this particular case, we're just simply utilizing the ability to stab. Now, of course, they have stabbing weapons too, which is a little dangerous for me, but as you can see, though, at least I am able to narrow down the field in this particular case to give myself an easier time to be able to fight. And even in this case, you know, fighting that many town guards is generally not something that you want to do. Town guards and crime and punishment are very nasty in this game. And this is the last thing that I want to talk about with you guys, is I want to talk about crime and punishment, and how it pertains to this particular game and why you want to avoid it. Crime and punishment is a pretty hot topic in this game. There are a lot of things that you can do that are considered bad. They're considered wrong. And you can absolve yourself of your sins by paying money at the nearest church at the indulgence box, and I'll show you one of those if I can, if I have a church nearby. But it's basically just a box that you go to and put money in, and if you put enough money in, you can absolve yourself of your sins. You can also talk to the priest, and the priest will give you like silly tasks to do, like go and pray at a certain number of shrines, to do a pilgrimage, and you can get, you know, like your sins absolved that way. But there's just tons of various things throughout the game that are going to count as trespassing or stealing. And most of the time when you look at something, if it specifically says steal, well then it's obviously stealing. So right here, this is obviously a stolen item. And if we steal this and nobody's looking, then we're fine, except for the fact that it's still stolen. So if we go down to the item and we actually look at it, you'll see that the item does in fact have a red hand on it, indicating that it is stolen. Trespassing is also a big deal in this particular game. They do not like it when you trespass into houses or places where you do not belong. And if you trespass into a building or a place where you're not allowed, they're going to let you know. They're going to yell it from the rooftops. They're going to ask you to get out. You'll have a picture come up on the screen letting you know that you are in a place that you don't belong. And in general, just, you know, telling you that you're being a horrible person. Murdering people, stealing, pickpocketing, trespassing. There are all sorts of reasons why you are potentially going to get kicked out of places in this game. And I can bring you to, you know, some random guy's house, and we'll go inside, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by trespassing. So let's take a look here. What do we got? We got some random people's houses up here. Let's go into a random person's house. Now, obviously, in real life, you would never just walk into a random person's house. Like, why would you do that? That's silly. Walking into a random person's house is obviously going to get you in trouble. And in this game, in most games, you do, in fact, do that. You just walk into random people's houses, and they're just like, oh, why are you doing that?
What are you doing here?
As you can see, I'm already trespassing. She's letting me know that I'm trespassing, and I need to get out.
It's just you.
Now, I could, of course, break into their house, which, of course, lockpicking is also illegal. Let's see if I can get into their house. And if I walk into their house, they're going to follow me. It lets me know up in the screen that I'm in a private area that I shouldn't be in. And if anybody sees me in here, they're going to start yelling at me, and they're going to let me know that I'm, you know, doing something wrong. Walking around with your weapon out is also considered illegal. People don't want you walking around threatening people.
What are you doing with that weapon? Slide it back under your belt.
Also, the guards may sometimes do a random check to see if you have stolen goods. And this means that if you have any stolen goods, they're going to put you in jail. You can go in the stocks. You can do all sorts of things to repay your penance. Most of them just simply involve money of some kind. Don't get a bad reputation. Let me just put it to you this way. You don't want to get caught doing crimes. You don't want to get caught killing people. You don't want to get caught doing none of that stuff. If you get caught, you're very likely going to hang from the gallows. When I say hang from the gallows, I mean they just kill you. Like there's no way out of it. It's not like a battle that you can fight your way out of. It's literally just you're dead, and that's it. Also, when it comes to murders, you can actually get accused of a murder that you didn't even commit, which is also kind of crazy. So in one particular situation, you may encounter a dead body laying on the ground, and a villager might come up and see you standing over the dead body and immediately accuse you of that murder, which is also very rough. Everything that you do seems to be in some way, shape, or form spread throughout the world through the murders that are being committed, through the various things that are going on, like you're stealing, you're trespassing, you having your weapon out, you challenging
I'm
people.
not interested in that weapon of
And
yours.
a lot of this is, it's hard to know exactly what's going on, whether somebody saw you or not. If you are planning on doing an evil playthrough, one thing I would highly recommend is that you do a no witnesses playthrough. Because from what I've seen of this particular game, anybody who witnesses your crime is very likely to report it. And, well, once they report your crime, that's pretty much it, and you have to pay the piper. If your crime rate goes too high...
Show me what you've got on you.
So here you go. Here's a random search. You have to reply to him one way or another. And you can say, all right, search me.
Go ahead and search me. Search!
I've got nothing to hide.
Well, well, well. What have we here? You didn't come by this honestly, you crook. I'm confiscating everything, according to the law. And I don't want to see anything like this again, hear me? Now move along.
So in this particular case, there was a random search, and lo and behold, the item that had the red stolen hand on it got taken out of my inventory. So do be aware that stolen items are something that are going to be searched and taken. They also can't really be sold to vendors easily either. There is a perk that I think I showed you guys already. It's in the Craftsmanship. It's called... what was it called again? Totally Legit. It makes stolen weapons and armor and clothing appear not stolen faster. So this is one that if you want to sell stolen equipment, you're going to want to get that particular perk. I think that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, and I'm trying to also not to spoil the game for you because it just loaded my earlier save, or my current save. Let me go back to one of my old saves here. Not trying to spoil you guys on what's going on in the game. Let's take one more look and make sure that we've covered everything that I think we can cover. And if you guys have any questions, be sure to ask. I will try and respond to them as much as I can. The only thing I haven't really covered is weapon types, and I probably should cover weapon types. So swords are pretty much your best bet when it comes to weapon types in this game. There's pretty much nothing else even close. Swords are capable of basically all of the damage types, which is something that you cannot get with any other weapon types. Another thing about swords is that swords have...
Goodman, I have something for you.
Swords have a much increased durability as well, which is very important. Most of the other weapon types have very low durability and break relatively easily. They also generally only provide 1 or 2 types of damage, like for instance blunt or blunt and piercing, or slashing and piercing, or something along that matter. The sword is, I think, the only one that actually has all 3. It's got piercing, blunt, and slashing, which is really nice. It also has higher durability than the other stuff. Like, I originally wanted to try and level up polearms until I realized that polearms had literally no durability and would break like almost instantaneously when you were fighting anybody. On top of this, things like the mace, there's not really a lot of good maces early on, although you can eventually get things like the flanged mace or the gilded flanged mace, which are very, very effective. And I do recommend using those eventually, but they're not things that you're going to have access to right away, so do keep that in mind. You're better off just utilizing the swords for the time being. There's 2 kinds of swords. There's a one-handed and a two-handed variant, and I'm currently using the one-handed or the two-handed variant. There is a specific perk that will allow you eventually to be able to wield your one-handed weapon in 2 hands. It's actually in the strength section, so leveling up your strength is going to be paramount to getting access to this. It's called... where is it? Or is it in the strength section? Actually, it might not be in the strength section now that I think about it. Is it in the main level? is that one? Maybe it's in swordsmanship. Yes, it's in swordsmanship. It's called Arm of Beowulf, which is where you can use a longsword together with a shield or a torch. This allows you to use the two-handed longsword with a shield, which is really effective. I originally was kind of skeptical about it, and once I got it on my playthrough, I was actually pretty excited about it because then I was able to use the two-handed longswords with a shield, and it just works really well. Let's go ahead and kill these guys real quick, and I'll give you another example of the combat system. So we're going to start off with a nice stab. When they raise their arm to do an attack, they are very vulnerable during that particular time period, and you got to get used to being able to grab at that timing. You want to pay. You have to capitalize on that timing. So whenever they go to raise their arm for an attack, you can usually provide a counterattack during that particular time period. Now, in this particular case, I'm outnumbered tremendously. I generally recommend taking out the non-armored opponents first, but since I've already landed several good strikes on the armored opponent, we're just going to go ahead and finish him off.
You wanna try me?
And we're going to focus on this guy next, and we're going to keep moving to the left. The reason, or the right. The reason why we're going to keep moving is because we want to keep that second opponent on the other side of the opponent that we're fighting. This allows us to get as much time to fight the single opponent as we possibly can. Oh, and that guy was begging for mercy, and I totally didn't see it in time. So I killed him anyway. But when they beg for mercy, you can actually do things like take all their equipment. You can ask them to pay you. Like, there's a bunch of different options. It depends on what you want to do. Now, when you kill bandits on the road don't count as, like, people. You can take their items, and it does not count as theft. My advice early on is just to go ahead and take everything. What you want to do is you want to repair everything, which is going to level up your craftsman ability. So as you take everything, do be specially aware that when you kill them, their weapons drop separate from their actual player. So you have to find their weapons on the ground. So do pay attention a little bit to where they fall. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to find their weapons. And you're going to want to use your kits to repair everything that you pick up from the bad guys. So whenever you kill bad guys and you pick up their stuff, you're always going to want to grab all their equipment, and you're going to want to repair it with the kits, because this is going to, number one, it's going to help level up your craftsman ability, and number two, when you get back to town and you sell this stuff, it's going to be worth more money because you repaired it. And this is just going to be a constant, never-ending thing. You want to make sure you're repairing everything, and you want to make sure that you're selling everything in town. In fact, early on, a good way to level up your strength, which I do recommend, is to carry large amounts of equipment and make yourself over-encumbered. Because the more over-encumbered that you are, the more strength that you will gain as a result. And it's going to help you out tremendously. I think that pretty much covers everything that I can think of for an early playthrough. I'm trying to make sure that I don't forget anything, because I want this guide to be, you know, massive and to give you everything that you need. Let's see here. There are skill trainers throughout the world that you can go to that'll teach you various skills. I highly recommend taking advantage of them. Tomcat is one of them. That's actually one of the quests, to go talk to one of the skill trainers. In fact, whenever you're in a village, you'll often see little icons that indicate that a person is capable of training you in a specific skill. So you can definitely take advantage of that. Each town has different things that you can take advantage of. Like, there's a tanner in this particular village. In some of the other villages, like in Takoff, there's a blacksmith. In Troskovich, you have obviously a scribe here and various other things that you can take advantage of. And you're going to want to take advantage of pretty much any of the amenities that you have in the specific villages. This is the Trotsky area. And Trotsky Castle is one of the main places that you're going to go to in the quest line. There's a lot of stuff here as well. I highly recommend that you pick up recipes whenever you get a hand too. So let's talk about recipes real quick. So whenever you are dealing with the open world, you're going to have tons of different crafting recipes that you're going to want to purchase. And these crafting recipes are going to lead to things like potions that you can make. You're going to want to grab the recipes for weapons. You're going to want to grab the recipes for like horseshoes, everything. The recipes are kind of expensive, and mainly the recipes are sold at 2 locations. You can get some of the recipes at the blacksmith. So all of the blacksmiths tend to have recipes, and it depends on each blacksmith what recipes they have. But picking up the recipes from the blacksmiths is a very, very important thing. You're going to want to try and get as many of the recipes as you can, because there are some really good recipes that you can craft to make money with as well, like high value axes and swords that can be sold for a good profit. The Alchemist also has all of the alchemy recipes that you're going to want to have access to, and you're going to want to get as many of those as well. Now, each blacksmith and each alchemist has different recipes, so it's always worth your time to check the alchemist and blacksmith for specific recipes and pick those up. Now, in the future, like in my main account, I have access to a lot of those recipes already, and I've been having a blast crafting and getting everything set up. My character is very well decked out on my full playthrough, and I kind of don't want to show it to you because I feel like I'm going to be spoiling it for you. That's why I'm loading the older games and trying to give you some of that information instead. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button. Let me know how you think about the game. What do you think about the combat system? Did you hate it at first like I did, and then suddenly it started to grow on you once you figured it out? Did you get a couple skill points, a little bit of armor, and now all of a sudden everything is clicking together and making sense? I've been having an absolute blast with this game, and I can't really say otherwise. As always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content, and consider supporting the channel with memberships or Patreon. It helps me not to be homeless, which is always nice. And as always, keep watching.